Hello and welcome. I am super excited that you signed up for this because I know that this means you want to put an end to imposter syndrome. So let's do that. One thing to ask yourself, though, before we really get started is what is it that you want to feel by the end of this masterclass? How do you want to come away feeling? Is it empowered, joyful, self assured, more certain, have more clarity, more focus, more confidence? Write that down. But before we can get there, let's look at what might be standing in the way. Those obstacles, those seemingly impossible things you don't even want to look at that you might be resisting or avoiding. What are some of those things? What's standing in your way of really stepping in to your power, to be able to be who you came here to be and do what you came here to do? By the end of the class, I want to have you shift from improving yourself to really knowing yourself, to really understanding what might be blocking you, where you might be wavering on your convictions, your beliefs that might be standing in the way, those self imposed limitations, so that you can allow your true self to emerge and let go of the fear, the shame, the guilt, any feelings of unworthiness, anything that's blocking you and helping you to stay stagnant, that's getting in your way, that's not allowing you to get to where you want to be. So stop doubting your abilities and trust what you know is enough. Own it, own what you know, and step into your full power and potential. This is what we're going to do over the next little while here. So I'll just do a little brief introduction about imposter syndrome. It actually first became a thing, imposter syndrome, in an article in 1978. And since then, we know there are so many of us, yes, myself included, that have felt inadequate and doubtful of our abilities. And I've always been curious about what that stems from. Where do we gather our sense of worthiness? Where do we get our self worth from? Are we so wanting to have great opinions from others about who we are, that we need to prove ourselves, please ourselves, or show ourselves up in what we think is the right way, that we start to doubt ourselves when we put so much onus on the opinions of others. We all yearn to feel seen and heard, and yet we emotionally fear it at the same time, especially when we don't feel like we measure up to others. I know this so true to myself that I always want to do more and be more and put myself out there. And yet I hold myself back. I'm a major introvert. I'm actually really shy. And I never know when it's the right time or place. At least I used to feel that way. Sometimes I still do. And I tend to observe more and kind of be at the sidelines. And I find that I don't get to have the impact that I want to if I keep doing that. I've always been purpose driven, wanting to change the world, wanting to wake it up and encourage other people to really harness their passion, what they're enthusiastic about, what they stand for, and really encourage them to have the power to step into that so that we all get to experience what you're here, what they're here to present, to show us, because we all make a difference. We're all here for a reason. We need you. We need you to step into your power. Imagine if all of the talk show hosts and authors out there didn't speak up, that they continued to hold themselves back. There wouldn't be any value offered. We wouldn't be able to learn and grow from them. So know that who you are makes a difference, and it also needs to be expressed. So that's why I'm doing this today. So you can gather the courage to be able to really step into that. So, like I said, we want to shift from improving yourself to really knowing yourself. So here's some self-reflective questions to consider. What might you be avoiding or resisting in your life, in your career, or in your business? What is it that you're avoiding? It'd be nice to start recognizing some of those avoidance patterns and those resistance patterns. That's some of the work that I had to do too, to really go inside and find out what I was plugging my power source into, what I was plugging into for that source of power. And I found that it was mostly external, which meant I was vulnerable to external judgments, wondering whether people would accept me or reject me, what they would think of me. And so I kept myself small because I was afraid to find out about rejection and those judgments and what they're really thinking. And it was interesting when I did start to put myself out there. There were some that I wasn't meant for, sure, but there was more people that were really interested, that were intrigued or felt inspired. And so I started to receive that feedback. And once I did, it helped me build my confidence. Say, okay, yeah, all right. I am making a difference. There are people that are hearing these messages and feel inspired by that. There are things that are being activated or triggered in people. And that's how we become catalysts for change. That people start to look at themselves in a different way, their thoughts, their beliefs, and how they might want to be showing up in the world, or recognize that the way they have been up until now isn't really the way that they want to be showing up. So take a moment. You might even want to pause this and answer this question. What might you be avoiding or resisting in your life, your career, your business? Pick one of those areas and start to observe and recognize and maybe take notes of where does your sense of worthiness come from? What is your power source? Is it internal or external? What are the things that make you feel good and powerful and feel worthy? How does that show up? What can you plug into to increase your sense of worthiness? And what are your current fears about how you would like to express yourself in your work? Where's the fear around that? What is it that's holding you back? So think about that. Write them down. Start to track this. And I have another big question for you. What does imposter syndrome actually feel like? What does it feel like for you? Do you feel small and contracted? Does it feel like anxiety is building up because you really want to share something with the world and yet you don't know how to, or if you have enough training and credibility to do so? How might it be showing up for you? What does it feel like? Really start to sense where that shows up in your body, how it feels, what you sense about imposter syndrome. Who is the imposter? We'll get to that a little bit later. So, what might be strong in what we do and who we are, and yet vulnerable when we begin to express it out there? We hold it all back. We have all these amazing ideas, and yet we're afraid to express it out there. Why? We know we're strong in what we do and who we are, and yet we're afraid to share that. It's amazing, isn't it, that we all want to be seen and heard, and yet we emotionally fear it at the same time. And I think, at least for me, that came from understanding. I didn't feel like people always got me and my ideas, and so I would hold them back. But what if you no longer experienced awkwardness and self-doubt? What would life be like then? See if you can feel into that. There's no awkwardness. There's no self-doubt. You can really step into your power, express yourself. How would life be different then? And is it the kind of life that you even want? What would you do today if you were fully in your power? If you were brave, what would you do? And what step would you be willing to take to move forward into that? See, we can't be moving forward until we take that step. And then we take the next step. And it's really important not to take a giant leap forward and do everything all at once. That giant leap can just be from this step where you're standing now and taking one step forward. That's what makes a difference. That's what moves you forward. And then you take the next step when you're ready to. It's like stepping along a stream of rocks, right? You want to steady yourself on one of them before you get to the next one. Or you might be wanting to run across them. And that's okay too, because you're going to get to the other side anyway. I had a friend when I was going through a major transition in my life. She was a holistic practitioner as well. So I was seeing her to help regulate my nervous system. It had been completely shot after leaving a really dysfunctional marriage. And I had lost my sense of self. I didn't know how I was going to move forward. I was afraid to move forward because my life was threatened actually at the time. And so I saw this friend who's also a holistic practitioner to help regulate me with some of the remedies that she uses. But she also gave me something really special. It was a trapeze artist, a charm on a necklace. And it represented taking that leap forward, jumping to the next rung, being brave enough to do that, knowing that there's a safety net underneath. You know how trapeze artists, if you ever seen them perform, then you know that there's a safety net there. They have trained hard and they know they're willing to take that leap to get to the next rung. And yet sometimes they fall too. Sometimes they fall, but then there's something that catches us. There's a safety net. And when you surround yourself in your network, surrounding yourself in your support network, that provides a sense of safety and security for you, because they're the ones that are going to be there to hold you up, to uplift you, that you know that you can always fall back to. And so it's important to surround yourself with the right people as well as you're continuing to take your steps forward. So another question I want you to consider, and this is really important, to really get in touch with your fears and your challenges. So what are those for you currently? Take some time to journal about that. What are your current fears and challenges? So I've been mentioning a little bit about how imposter syndrome can show up. And here are some more ways. You may feel that you need to prove yourself in some way. You may feel like you don't belong or fit in. You wonder if you really stack up against the rest, whether you have the right amount of skills and abilities. Or you might hide your truth. You know that you have something special to share. And you know, it's interesting because imposter syndrome is mostly found amongst high achievers, amongst those that are purpose driven and yet hide their truth. Isn't that interesting? You may also be stuck in a self-perpetuating cycle of procrastination and perfectionism, and both cause stagnation. You don't really get anywhere. You stay in this so-called comfort zone, but is it really that comfortable? You procrastinate, you put things off because you have to wait until you have the right training or the right time or the right energy, or that you need it to be perfect before you put it out there. No, all of that confidence comes as you start putting yourself out there. Vincent van Gogh, the famous artist, the painter, had a quote, and I love it. It's, when you hear that voice inside of you that says you're not a painter, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. You see, it's only when you start doing these things that you realize you are capable of doing these things and start building the confidence in that, start getting the feedback in that, and then you can improve and perfect your craft and become more into the fullness of who you are. You no longer doubt yourself and your abilities, or you fear that you're not good enough. I mean, that's the biggest lie that any of us have ever told ourselves, that we're not good enough. That's the biggest thief of living your absolute best life and becoming the best version of your life. So let yourself be enough right now with what you know, you know. And you can start expressing yourself in that way. And when you know better, you'll do better. You'll continue to grow and evolve. but not if you keep yourself back, not if you keep yourself hidden. Then where is there to go and grow? So there may also be the fear of being found out, that maybe you don't have the certification and degrees that add up to your credibility, even though you still carry a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experience. Sometimes those are things that we've brought in from past lifetimes. We've already done that in some way, believe it or not. We've done that in other past lives. And that's why we have these natural gifts and abilities, because we've already developed them previously. We've also developed a lot of wisdom, skills, and abilities in this lifetime that have brought you to the place that you are now and will further you in your soul's growth. Like I said, imposter syndrome is mostly found among high achievers who are driven in most areas and yet hide their truth. It's time to come up from outside of that shield, that barrier, that wall that you've been hiding under, and get rid of the perfectionism. You know that perfectionism actually repels people. And instead move from your place of that innate wisdom, that inner knowing. Start shining your light and expressing your passion. See, when I think of passion, when you break up the word, it's pass I on. And that I is your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. So pass it on. And remember that perfection is just stagnation. We don't want that anymore. We want there to be flow. So get into your flow. Let yourself grow. Move beyond any shadow of doubt and fear of not being good enough. When you feel like you don't belong or not capable, you keep yourself small, contracted. You may even keep yourself hidden. You deny yourself and others the opportunity to really shine your light. So I'm here to help you activate and illuminate your inner light, to really be able to express from your soul, to pass your eye on. And yet, I talked about a little bit about that inner knowing, that wisdom, and there's also the intuitive guidance that guides us. And we may fear that. You know why? Because by its very nature, it directs us into new cycles of growth that are sometimes uncomfortable. And it puts us into a state of chaos and uncertainty. It's a little bit anxiety provoking, isn't it? But did you know that fear and courage or faith are basically flip sides of the same coin? That the same part of our brain is activated whether we're nervous or excited. So what if instead of being nervous, you got excited about what to share, what you wanted to share? You restored that innocence of a child that couldn't wait to show their parents or guardians what they made that day, how they expressed themselves that day, and can't wait to tell you all about it. Let's get back to that. Let's move from our comfort zone into our growth zone. That's on the other side of that fear. That's on the other side of the door, is being able to have the courage to live your life and express who you are, to really come into your empowerment. And let's look at empowerment as being in a place of authenticity and really walking your path with integrity. So that's being congruent in all settings, your life, your career, your family, your friends, and even with yourself, that you are the same person in all of those settings. You don't take on a particular role and persona in one area of your life and be something different in the other area. That's incongruent, and it actually fragments who you are, your whole self. And then we got to go into all these cycles of healing to come back to that place of wholeness. But if you show up from a place of integrity, from your authentic being, from your spiritual sovereignty, then that's empowerment. Then you can really step into your full power and be like this woman, my friend Jean. She's, I am woman, hear me roar. You know, they're open and expressive and vocal and sharing yourself in some way, even if that means writing. You know, you might not be seen, but your words are seen, your ideas are out there. There's always a way to be able to express yourself that you're comfortable with. And then as you do that, you'll become more comfortable expressing yourself in other ways. But let's get empowered. And I have a secret to tell you about who the real imposter is. The real imposter is shame. When you can heal and let go of shame, there's no more imposter syndrome. There's confidence. There's authority. There's stepping into your power. There's resourcefulness. So there's a big healing piece around shame, and that's something that I can help you with through our coaching and our programs to really help to heal where you've been giving away your power, where you've been in the state of shame, in feelings of unworthiness, of fear and self-doubt. We can move through that. But know that that's what the imposter actually is. And so shining your light into the fullness of who you are without shame is how we end imposter syndrome. We just step into it. We shine our light. We step into our spiritual sovereignty. We really claim that. And that, my friends, is the antidote to end imposter syndrome. So start recognizing how you can offer as an act of service rather than from ego. So here's the thing. We're often led and motivated by either ego or soul. And ego always likes to compare. Okay, so this is where we start creeping into fear and self-doubt and awkwardness and nervousness and start keeping ourselves hidden because we don't know how we stack up against the rest. We don't know if we're enough. We're always comparing ourselves to others. And that's where we can really suffer. Soul, on the other hand, always likes to find a way to connect. So when you're being in a place of service, then you're establishing stronger connection to your authentic being, connection with others that you're trying to serve and share a message with, or be in right relationship with, whether it's partnerships or family, friends, coworkers, colleagues. Connect. Focus more on connecting than comparing. And this is going to put you in a whole different headspace and really help you to move forward. So if you feel that you might suffer from imposter syndrome, you may experience low self-esteem or low self-worth. So an antidote to that, I'm telling you again, it is spiritual sovereignty. Remember your divine nature. Remember that you came here to experience what it's like being human. So it's okay to make mistakes and experiment a little bit and try things out. I love Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Fear. I don't know if you've read that one. It's a fantastic book. And his antidote to fear is to engage in curiosity, to reawaken that sense of wonder and just be curious. I wonder what would happen. Like I asked you at the beginning, what would life be like if there wasn't imposter syndrome? If you didn't have any self-doubts? If you didn't keep yourself hidden, what would life be like then? So experiment with that. Find out. So remember that you did come here to experience what it's like being human, and first and foremost, you are a spiritual being. Having this human experience. We hear that all the time. But can you really claim that? Can you really understand yourself as a spiritual sovereign being? Because if you did, then you can walk this world like you are the creator and create your best life and inspire others to do the same by being a role model of the path. So when you're questioning your abilities and your capacity, you're actually underestimating your potency. So yeah, we can become aware of our skills and abilities, but let's look at our potency. That comes about with the energy of passion, right? Pass I on. That I being your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. That's where your potency lies. Where do you have that charge? What are you in charge of that inspires others, that activates others, that others can plug into and tap into their own power? It's regenerative when we can use our own power and our own potency. So step up, accept, and express yourself and what you stand for. So now I'm going to give you 10 ways to start developing the confidence, because quite often that's what's lacking. Adopt a sense of adventure. Get excited about taking risks. Live with curiosity, courage, and compassion. See yourself as a collector of personal skills and different types of knowledge. It's like a little treasure hunt. What else can you learn? What else is possible? How else can you be expressing yourself? What other ideas can you share with others? And know that you can take things slowly, baby steps. As long as you keep stepping, you're moving forward. Look toward a support system, right? Your safety net, for a little help and encouragement, to keep yourself inspired and keep vibrating on the level that's going to attract all the people, places, and things that you need in your life to shine. And give yourself permission to make mistakes. I made a few of them already just in this presentation. And don't think that you need to be immediately good at something, especially something new that you're just trying for the first time. Cut yourself some slack. Approach life with, I like to say, curiosity, courage, and compassion. Have some compassion for yourself as you're trying out new things, learning to express yourself in new ways. Have some compassion. And begin thinking of the areas outside of your comfort zone and that would be in your growth zone. So this is where it might feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're still settling in to that way of being. And you will. So give yourself some time. And find a creative outlet. This is so important to find a creative outlet. This is where you get to create and be inspired and have ideas. So find some things that bring you joy and do that often. That's what's going to keep you inspired and motivated and in the flow. And I encourage you to book an inner light activation session with me. This one's on me. There's absolutely no cost. There's no obligation. We're just going to get together for about a half hour and talk about some of those fears and challenges you have. Talk about what might be holding you back and also really start to envision what you want to be putting out there and then activating the energy and the power to be able to do that. So if you want to do that, just check below in the video description. There's going to be a link there where you can book your session. I'd love to offer that to you. If you're willing to accept it, then let's get started on that inner light activation and really help you step into your spiritual sovereignty and put an end to this imposter syndrome. So I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation. Usually it's more interactive, so I do encourage you to put in some comments in the video there below, like and subscribe, and get in touch with me. If you have any questions at all, any way I can support you, I am more than happy to do that. Thanks for listening.